Hi friends! I'm glad to be back with you again this week as we continue talking about courage. Last week we talked about courage to make mistakes, but this week we're going to talk about courage in a little more traditional way. We're going to talk about the courage to take a leap. That means to do something that maybe feels scary or a little risky, something where you might have to feel brave. And our book for this week is about someone or something who didn't have a whole lot of courage. His name was Scaredy Squirrel. Maybe you read about him before, but this book made me laugh out loud, and it also made me think about myself. So again, even though this is an illustrated picture book, it's for people of all ages, for kindergartners all the way to 6th graders, and even the grown-ups in your life. I'm going to read to you the very first thing that it says about this book, and then we'll look through the pages together. The introduction to the book says this. Here's the story in a nutshell. I never leave my tree. It's way too dangerous out there. I could encounter germs, poison ivy, or sharks. If danger comes along, I'm prepared. I have antibacterial soap, Band-Aids, and a parachute. But things really get shaken up later in the book when I'm forced out of my tree by a vicious intruder. Will I survive this ordeal? Will I undergo a life-changing experience? Will I discover my true inner self? Read my nutty adventure to find out. Caution, this story is not suitable for green Martians. Are you in? You want to hear how Scaredy Squirrel had courage? Well, I know I do. Let's read it together. Scaredy Squirrel, written and illustrated by Melanie Watt. Warning, Scaredy Squirrel insists that everyone wash their hands with antibacterial soap before reading this book. We've had to do a lot of that this year, haven't we? Scaredy Squirrel. Scaredy Squirrel never leaves his nut tree. He'd rather stay in his safe, familiar tree than risk venturing out into the unknown. The unknown can be a scary place for a squirrel. A few things Scaredy Squirrel is afraid of. Green Martians, killer bees, tarantulas, poison ivy, germs, and sharks. So he's perfectly happy to stay right where he is. Advantages of never leaving the nut tree. Great view, plenty of nuts, safe place. No tarantulas, poison ivy, green Martians, killer bees, germs, or sharks. Disadvantages of never leaving the nut tree. Same old view, same old nuts, same old place. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. In Scaredy Squirrel's nut tree, every day is the same. Everything is predictable. All is under control. Scaredy Squirrel's daily routine. Wake up, eat a nut, look at view. Eat a nut, look at view. Eat a nut, look at view. Go to sleep. But let's say, just for example, that something unexpected did happen. You can rest assured that this squirrel is prepared. A few items in Scaredy Squirrel's emergency kit. Hard hat, antibacterial soap, calamine lotion, parachute, bug spray, mask and rubber gloves, net, Band-Aid, sardines. What to do in case of emergency according to Scaredy Squirrel. Step 1, panic. Step 2, run. Step 3, get kit. Step 4, put on kit. Step 5, Consult exit plan. Step 6, exit tree if there is absolutely, definitely, truly no other option. Exit plan, top secret. Exit 1, note to self, watch out for green Martians and killer bees in the sky. Exit 2, note to self, do not land in river. If avoidable, use sardines to distract sharks. Exit 3, note to self, look out for poison ivy and for tarantulas roaming the ground. Exit 4, note to self, keep in mind that germs are everywhere. Remember, if all else fails, playing dead is always a good option. With his emergency kit in hand, Scaredy Squirrel watches. Day after day he watches. Until one day, Thursday, 9:37 a.m. A killer bee appears! Scaredy Squirrel jumps in panic, knocking his emergency kit out of the tree. This was not part of the plan. Scaredy Squirrel jumps to catch his kit. He quickly regrets this idea. The parachute is in the kit. But something incredible happens. He starts to glide. Scaredy Squirrel is no ordinary squirrel. He is a flying squirrel. He feels overjoyed, adventurous, carefree, alive, until he lands in a bush. Scaredy Squirrel forgets all about the killer bee, not to mention the tarantulas, poison ivy, green Martians, germs, and sharks. He plays dead. 30 minutes later, 1 hour later, 2 hours later. Finally, Scaredy Squirrel realizes that nothing horrible is happening in the unknown today. So he returns to his nut tree. All this excitement has inspired Scaredy Squirrel to make drastic changes to his life. Scaredy Squirrel's new and improved daily routine. Wake up, eat a nut, look at view, jump into the unknown, play dead, return home, eat a nut, look at view, eat a nut, look at view, go to sleep. P.S. As for the emergency kit, Scaredy Squirrel is in no hurry to pick it up just yet. The end. Isn't he hilarious? I just love that Scaredy Squirrel had everything in his tree to help him feel safe. And then one day something happened and he had to have courage. He took a leap on accident and he didn't have the things that made him feel safe. But what happened? He discovered he was way more than he ever thought he was. He thought he was just a tree squirrel. He had no idea that he was a flying squirrel. So that little bit of courage to leap out of his tree showed him that he had something inside of him that he didn't even know. And so this week in our art journal, we are going to create our own Scaredy Squirrel picture. Our art journal is going to have our safe tree. We're going to draw Scaredy Squirrel's tree. We're going to draw the acorns inside, but inside of the acorns, we're going to draw some things that maybe make us feel safe. Then we're going to draw our own unknown. Maybe for you, the things that make you feel afraid are snakes. For me, it's not having enough time. Maybe it's the dark. And then I'm going to teach you how to draw Scaredy Squirrel himself. And you will get to choose how you feel about jumping into things that might feel scary. So you'll get to choose whether your Scaredy Squirrel has an excited face, a surprised face, a happy face. You'll get to make Scaredy Squirrel all your own. All you need for this project is your art journal, a pencil with an eraser, and some colored pencils. So let's create together. All right, grab your art journal and go ahead. Remember last week, so we have, oops, that's the back of my journal. We have a couple of blank pages at the beginning that we're going to fill in later. And then we had our Oopsosaurus Rex. And then I want you to just turn one page so that you have 2 pages. We're going to create artwork that spreads across the 2 pages. We're going to do our tree on the left. We're going to do the unknown below. And then we're going to do Scaredy Squirrel almost on the whole right-hand side of the page. So this is one that I've finished. Let's go ahead and do one in my other journal. So I have my journal open like this. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to just draw the tree that was Scaredy Squirrel's tree. And I'll show you our inspiration for this. Here we go. Here we see Scaredy Squirrel's tree. And it's a really easy thing to draw. It's just bumps around for the leaves. The trunk has a little point and almost like a little thumb sticking off. And there's a hole. So remember, this does not have to be art gallery work. This is for you to create and have fun. Notice that I made my big tree and it comes over a little bit into the second page. I have my trunk up in the middle and my hole right there. So let's draw that together. I almost always do an invisible drawing with my finger first. So I'm going to start about 1/4 of the way up the page. And I'm going to imagine the big part of my trunk coming around like this, and I'm going to draw that with my pencil. Why don't you join me? Sometimes I like to make sound effects when I'm drawing. Bloop, 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 bloop. And I'm going to leave a little space right here where I'm going to put my trunk. I'm going to start my trunk at the bottom, and I'll go up to a point, almost like a little house. So that, like that little point right there. And now your tree doesn't have to look exactly like Scaredy Squirrel's tree. I just think it's fun to imitate the artwork of our illustrator, Melanie Watt. So I'm trying to make mine look just like Scaredy Squirrel's tree. So to do that, I'm going to come up. I'm going to create a little point. I'm going to come down. And then I'm going to make a little thumb. Like a little rectangular thumb, and come all the way back down. Now, if you wanted to, you could just come straight up across and have a rectangular trunk. Totally fine. The next thing I want to add to my tree are the acorns. Now, inside the acorns, I have drawn the things that help me feel safe. Mine might be a little silly. Some of mine are the things that make my family members feel safe. So some of them feel safe when the light is on. So I drew a light bulb in my acorn. One of my children feels particularly safe when he has his blue blanket nearby. I feel safe when my husband is around. Sometimes I feel safe when my dogs are around. Sometimes I feel safe when I know I have a refrigerator full of food. You might feel safe for all sorts of different reasons. It might be a person that makes you feel safe, or a place. It might be a song that somebody sings for you. It might be any number of things. So we're going to make, I don't know, 3, 4, 5, 6, however many acorns you want in your tree, and then draw something inside that makes you feel safe. The shape of the acorn is very simple. It's just a U with a semicircular hat and a stem. I'll show you how to do that. So I'm going to make one acorn a U, then I'm going to make a little flat rainbow on top, another one on top of that, and then a little stem. And the way that the illustrator showed the texture on top of the acorn was by making 3 vertical lines and 1 horizontal line in the middle. Do that again, a U with a little hat, a stem, 3 vertical lines, and a horizontal line. U, stem, some vertical lines, and a horizontal line. I think on this one I maybe just do 4 because I did mine pretty big. Maybe I have one over here too. You want them big enough so that you can draw something on the inside of them. And if you made it too small, that's why we have erasers. One of my favorite, you can tell that I use my eraser all the time. It's got a lot of wear on it. Last thing I'm going to add to my tree is just a little hole where Scaredy Squirrel likes to come in and out. Go ahead and draw your acorns, and then draw whatever you want inside of the acorns. And here's the thing, if you don't want to draw pictures like I did, you can write words. You could write, I feel safe when my dad is home. Or I feel safe when the light is on. Or I feel safe at school. You can draw and write. This is your tree. So you fill in your acorns however you'd like. I'm going to keep filling in mine, and you can keep filling in yours. Okay, so now we've got our acorns, we've got our tree trunk, and let's, if you want to, I'm going to just write this up here, this word up here for myself to remember. This is everything that I think about when I think of safety. This is where I feel safe. You could write my safe place or my safe tree, or you don't have to write anything at all. Next thing we're going to draw is the unknown, the thing that had all of the things that Scaredy Squirrel was afraid of. To do that, we're going to draw our horizon. That's the place where the sky meets the ground. And notice that our horizon is behind the tree here. So I'm just going to draw a line, and we're going to pretend we're going to go, 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 and then up over the speed bump, and then continue it on this side all the way onto our other page. I think it's kind of fun to add a little bit of a bush over there, but you don't have to do that. And Scaredy Squirrel was afraid of the river. You can draw a wiggly line that winds through your unknown. When I did mine, instead of a river, I made a path. Because I am afraid of snakes. I'm not afraid of sharks. At least I don't encounter them enough to be afraid of them. So this is our unknown, and this is the place where you can draw or write anything that makes you feel a little bit afraid. So you might be afraid of the dark, or you might be afraid of germs, or you might be afraid of snakes, or you might be afraid of giving a report in class, or you might be afraid of talking to somebody you don't know, or you might be afraid of, I'm going to put a microphone in here, you might be afraid of talking in front of people, or you might be afraid of just being alone. You might be afraid of dogs. I'm going to draw my goofy little dog. You might, boy, that is the worst dog. It's not worse. We'll call that a beautiful oops dog right there. You might be afraid of snakes. You might be afraid of fire. I don't even like to light candles. Sometimes that makes me feel afraid. So go ahead and draw whatever you want. And again, this is your journal. So if you just want to write words, you could fill the whole unknown with things that make you feel afraid. And then finally, we're going to draw Scaredy Squirrel. Scaredy Squirrel took a leap out of the tree. He leapt because he was afraid, but what he discovered when he leapt was that he was a really unique flying squirrel. I've never seen a flying squirrel in person, but I sure would like to. But I learned how to draw a flying squirrel from looking at Scaredy Squirrel in this book. Let's look at some of the shapes, because he's really just a group of some simple shapes. His body is mostly a rectangle. His head is a horizontal oval. His tail is a collection of what we would call letter C's or curves. His paws are basically just W's. His mouth is just a series of horizontal and vertical lines in a rectangle, and his nose is a V. So let's draw his body together. Now I'm going to make the little plan with my fingers first. So I want to make Scaredy Squirrel fill up most of this space right here. I'm going to make that rectangle body first. You're going to want to draw this part a little bit lightly because we'll do some erasing. I'm going to do mine dark just so you can see it. So I'm doing a rectangle kind of leaning over to the left for Scaredy Squirrel's body. The next thing I'm going to do is his tail. And his tail kind of makes a C like this. So I want you to draw, we're just drawing the direction of his tail. Then I want you to make another C and then scoot it down like that. Now to get the points in the tail, you can just make some V's like this. And then you can erase the parts that don't have the V's. So I've got Scaredy Squirrel's tail. I also want to do his head. And his head is a pretty big oval, and it overlaps his body. So I'm going to draw an oval that's overlapping part of his body. I'm going to erase the part of the body that overlaps. Now, Scaredy Squirrel's face isn't just an oval. He has a funny little pointy chin. So at the bottom, I'm going to make just a tiny little bump and erase that part. On the top of Scaredy Squirrel's head, he has these cute little ears, and they're kind of close together towards the middle of the oval. So I'm going to make one bump, and I'm going to make another bump. And he has some, to show how the ears fold, he has a backwards L and a forwards L inside of his ears. His face is two-toned. You can see that his snout is a lighter color than the top of his head. And to do that, we're just going to make a little hill in the middle of his face. So I'm going to start on the left-hand side, come up and make a hill, and go back down again. And he looks so funny because his eyes are so wide set. So we're going to put his eyes way over on the outside of his face. Now his nose is just a V that leads to his mouth. Now you might decide that your Scaredy Squirrel actually is happy about jumping out of the tree. So after making your V, you might make a line down to a smile. You might think that your Scaredy Squirrel is terrified about jumping out of the tree. And so after your V, you might make a big, wide open screaming mouth with teeth and a tongue. I'll set that down here, and I'll put this one right here. Or you might think that your Scaredy Squirrel is just not quite sure. I think I'm going to go ahead and draw this one. To draw that kind of smile, it's just a big rectangle with a horizontal line and some vertical lines for his teeth. So we have Scaredy Squirrel's body, his tail, his head. Now he needs some arms and some legs. Simple as pie. We're going to come out with 2 lines for each arm and then just make some bumps. I don't care how many fingers your Scaredy Squirrel has. You can have 4, you can have 5, you can have 3, whatever you think fits. And his legs are very similar. They come out with 2 lines. Then you can make a little bend and do some bigger toes for him. And there you have your Scaredy Squirrel. If you want to add other things to your picture like I did, I added a little cloud in my first one. I wrote the unknown, maybe the things that make me scared. You could even name it Scary Land. I wrote that in my background. And now all that's left is to color in your own Scaredy Squirrel journal. When I colored mine, I looked back at the original author's illustration and I noticed how neat it was that the author left a lot of white around each part of her illustrations. So I didn't feel like I had to color perfectly in the lines. I could leave space as I was coloring to leave some of those white spaces around the different parts. This is your artwork though. You can color it any way you'd like. I'm going to go ahead and color mine, and you can join me and color yours. As you color, I want you to notice that I use my colored pencils in different ways. So if I want to color a big space like the sky, I'll often hold my pencil way far back and just use the side of my pencil fairly quickly so that I get more color on a big space. If you want to do that, you can try that too. If I'm going to color a smaller space, I'm going to hold my pencil just like I would any other pencil and maybe use the tip of the colored pencil more than I would the side. But you'll notice me doing that as I color my way through my picture. Scaredy Squirrel discovered that there was something special inside of him when he decided to be courageous. And you're not flying squirrels, but I know that there's something special inside of you. I'd sure love to hear how you are courageous this week. When you take a leap, maybe make a new friend, or try something new, or do something that requires a little more courage than you've tried before, I bet you might discover that you too can fly. I sure love drawing together with you even when we're apart, and I look forward to seeing you next week.